This is the risk one takes in meeting the soul twin, who wants to lead one down a difficult road, and whose first appearance is in fact the beginning of that journey. Frankenstein's creature, his double, is the guide on the path of his individuation. The creature's ugliness is the eros of that guide, its libido, seen through the eyes of society's shadow. This eros is the creativity of the double. It marks the creature with a sign, just as Cain is marked in Hermann Hesse's parallel novel, somewhat later. Damien, as Damon explains to Emile, Cain bore a sign such that, quote, he struck people as faintly sinister, perhaps a little more intellect and boldness in his look than people were used to. This man was powerful. You would approach him only with awe. He had a sign. You could explain this any way you wish, and people always want what is agreeable to them and puts them in the right. So they did not interpret the sign for what it was, a mark of distinction, but as its opposite, unquote. The creature's ugliness was the sign of Dr. Frankenstein's attachment to the collective identity and his fear of becoming himself. Quote, the bodily eye that recoils from Frankenstein's creature thereby betrays the mind to the impostures of orthodoxy, unquote. In truth, the creature isn't ugly at all, but beautiful and full of light. He is the agent of Jesus' dictum, quote, think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I come to set man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of thy own household. He that loveth father and mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that taketh not his cross, and follow after me, is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loses his life for my sake shall find it, unquote. Ultimately, the double is a psychopomp sent by Christ/Satan. He, parenthesis, or she, as the case may be, and parenthesis, carries Lucifer's torch and wields the Lamb's sword. In this guise, he is not to be denied, and our avoidance only brings on Frankenstein's fate. In this dilemma, the more difficult choice is the only choice we really have. Shelley's Frankenstein tells us that the repressed contains the seeds of enlightenment. And this is true not only for the individual in relation to the soul, but for people in relation to each other and for society in general. So much of Western culture is bound up in a competitor theme. You might say that it is competitor-consolated. And this manifests not only in the more obvious forms of competition and contentiousness and, quote, looking for a fight, unquote, as they say. Whether it be in business, interpersonal relations, sports, or friendships, people too often are concerned with gaining at the other's advantage, taking things, getting ahead, trying to win. People want to impress others, appear assured, confident, so as to, quote, succeed, unquote, in a job or with a lover. Too many are concerned only with what the ego wants or has been trained to desire. As James Hillman has noted, this ego is a manifestation of the, quote, animus, unquote. That is the complement to the anima, meaning a same-sex soul figure. Hillman is trying to, in his own way, and he calls it an animus, which is technically wrong to do that. But I would interpret this, quote, animus, unquote, to be not so much the double as that part of it captured in the English definition of animus, deep-seated hostility and antagonism. That is the Western ego itself, with its haughty pride, its arrogance. It should mean Western breeder ego itself. Its haughty pride, its arrogance and suspiciousness reflects the competitor, thereby revealing its state of ignorance and self-alienation. The solution to this social problem lies with those whose society has ostracized. They contain the seeds of change which society has rejected as vile, ugly, perverted. Just as mental patients can show us the meaning of madness, and feminist women the truth of the feminine, so gay people harbor the key of gentle rapport, the harmony of, quote, brotherly love, unquote. If society wishes to heal its self-estrangement, then it must look behind the hated covering of these misfits and grasp the call of the soul. Then it will be surprised to discover that weakness turns to strength and reveals a path into the greater mysteries. And notes. Let's see about that. Another 1977. shared this thing with you, there you have a chance to sit there and listen to all this. I don't want to go on forever and ever like this in this kind of format, because this is a club environment. I hope you all also be open to the fact that this is a rare and unusual, once a month public space. This doesn't happen for homosexual themes in this way, where they're focused on, I tell you, and not just in the ways that breeders focus on their themes, as if they're all just the same thing. All just looks the same, the happy victims of consumerism, democracy, the way it is today. I suggest it's not. For example, this novel, Frankenstein, is about that very issue, that very dilemma for a person, probably a bunch of people who are faced personally with this problem. It's not a problem that's common. I'm sure that some of you were able to notice points of commonality between things that were discussed in the paper or things that were discussed in the original novel and things up to date, things that might be relevant to you. So of course, I'm especially interested if you had any reactions to hearing any of this. You have any feelings about it? Any thoughts yourself about it that you might want to contribute? I want to give you all a chance. I'm going to open it up here. Give you all a chance if you have questions that you might like to ask of me, for example, or something that you just want to share with the folks. Because otherwise it's just me here and then you all silent listening down there. And I want to invite you all to feel like the more live beings that you actually are. We settle in this format because it's pretty a simple one, with the rows of chairs and someone who speaks for a while, but not the whole time. Because I want us to interact some. I think it's good for folks. Because we don't have a space like that normally. In a space like this where individuals such as myself can present on such a theme. And I guess it could have been anything. I'm just having to pick this particular little paper that'll be interesting. And you might find it edifying and stimulating in some way, or relevant somewhere. But to extend that relevance, to extend that impact and substance to the here and now, also is some of the idea of the club here. It's not really a lecture. So I'm interested to invite any of you to consider sharing reactions and thoughts and anything like that. I'm sure that you could all have been having reactions and thoughts and feelings and so on and so forth, perhaps related or unrelated, perhaps to the particular themes. So I want to throw that open. We've got some time here too. And so I won't drag it out to the literal end. Usually I drag this out to 9:30. And everyone's trapped because we're forced to be, the city of West Hollywood says we can't be in here after 9:30, creating a terrible, awful burden for the workers. So we're supposed to instantly zip out of here at 9:30, which I mean about. But we want to create an informal atmosphere too. It's good if we can end even before 9:30 actually. But I want to give some time for reaction from those of you who might like to share stuff and have questions and concerns or whatnot or whatever. If any of you do, I want to throw it open to all of you to consider that. We have some open time here. We can have some comments and questions and reactions. Does anyone have anything like that? Are you signaling?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Also, if you could please say your first name too.
I'm Ali, and I found it was interesting because I read this story back when I was 17, and I remember at the time it had a really profound impact on me, and yet. It's like as I was listening to it now, it was sort of like there was this active imagination with that 17-year-old in me of how I felt so shut down that I thought I knew so much. I thought I could understand the whole story, and yet, especially that piece that you read with Walton, kind of talking about that love of the friend or whatever, that there was such a longing for that in me, and at the same time, I was willing to go with it at the above the waist level. And I could kind of feel how I was so myself cut off from that. So there was such a painful feeling as I was listening to this of how could I have read this whole story and been impacted and at the same time not get a clue whatsoever as to what it was about around my own self. And kind of the oppression of my own inner world, the sort of the versions of the pillory that I must have had to deal with, that would have made me sort of there. So I just kind of could feel my own sort of, and then sort of the creature's rage towards all of that.
Yeah, he's not selfless sacrificer.
Wanting to sort of create vengeance towards all who sort of hurt him. And to really come back against love if you do not give me love. So just wanted to name that. That's just some of the stuff I was going through.
Okay. Phew. Thanks for sharing that. Phew, I get that. That could resonate in some strong ways. Thanks for sharing. Great. Thanks for that. Anyone else have any reactions or comments or questions or whatnot?
Callum, and I got very upset about page 6. I've been dealing where this quotation where this 1699 commentator talks about this crime that sinks man below the basis epithet and all of that. I just made a note that it sounds like the church I grew up in. And I got really upset because, partly because of this increasing awareness of the awful, hateful damage that was done to my own soul around being gay. But I've been really upset lately, the past couple of days especially. I've got some folks actually who are in this group that I've been working with to try to get down to a truer sense of my own self. And what made me so upset is how much I realized that that I do what Frankenstein did. How I have taken on like this. I look at my gay brothers and I hate them sometimes. And I think that's disgusting. And yet I'm so caught in that competition. That hateful competition. And I felt like I live out exactly this story in some ways, And so I'm just really getting sensitized to it, and I hate it about myself and trying to work on it. I just want to add that.
Wow. Well, that's a heavy duty. Wow. Can you say some more about the sense of hatred and competition?
I notice that almost anytime anybody takes initiative, especially in this setting, I'll just sort of focus it here. And with ICUP, someone takes initiative, and there's like this impulse in me that wants to compete, that wants to do it better, that even thinks I can do it better, and that denigrates the other person. And it gets attached, this kind of hatred gets attached to all kinds of aspects of another person's personality, the way they talk, the way they seem, in my estimation, to be logical or not, the way they express themselves, the way they look. And there's like this kind of, almost feels automatic, this put down, this hatred, this disgust. And I was thinking today about how part of the work I'm doing is to try to actually invite in gay-centered criticism from people who are trying to be more gay-centered, to actually welcome it, And part of where I get tripped up though is because the church that I grew up in taught that we should be open to the criticism of these Christian teachers. And so it's like it's like the programming sort of fucks with me, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be open to the criticism of my gay-centered brothers and sisters, and yet that feels like I'm instantly opening myself up to attack from these Christians in my head.
You mean the criticism around this hostility in you, this hostile reaction?
No, they would criticize me for other things. They would criticize me for sitting like a sissy.